decrease malnutrition and help these farmers become self-sufficient. And it's pretty cool to know that the project team actually uses Confluence to manage this massive project. From sub-Saharan Africa to sailing the high seas, we've got a world-class research vessel that undertakes research in oceanography. The data from this is used by scientists all over the world to help them understand fisheries, oceans, and weather patterns. But I've got one personal favourite. How do you explain a beeping body part as you walk through airport security? With pride. CSIRO has just invented the first titanium sternum and rib cage that's been used in world-first surgery in a Spanish cancer patient. How lucky am I to be working with all of those amazing scientists? My name is Sarah Blake and I work with CSIRO as the Workflow Services Manager. I support these scientists who have been leading the cutting edge in science, innovation and research for the last 85 years. So my role and the role of my team is to support these scientists, to remove the administrative burden and let these scientists get on with making real discoveries. One way we were able to do this was when we revamped our service centres. As Carolyn said, we rolled out 8 service centres in less than 6 months. What we're going to do in the next 20 minutes is take you through a problem that was familiar to us across all of our service centres, and I'm sure will be familiar to yourselves. We've got 4 insights, and these 4 insights helped us roll out these service centres in a fast and furious way. Before we go into some Q&A, we've got some pretty amazing statistics, and after Q&A, we'll have the wrap-up.
I've seen that a couple of times, and it still amazes me, some of the things that we've invented and the impact we're having on the planet and everyone that lives on it. My name's Norman Spur, and I'm fortunate enough to lead a team of around 60 to 70 people where we're developing software for our scientists. We're managing our enterprise application platforms, and we're utilising those platforms to build line of business solutions for our customers. Like any large organisation that's been around a while, there's a culture, and we do have a problem. And the problem is this. Every single day in CSIRO, 183,000 emails get sent. And that problem extends to our service centres, the service centres that we had to get in there and actually help. I'll give you one example. One of our finance service centres processes something like 7,000 inquiries and 5,000 invoices every month. But they relied on email. Picture this, an inbox full to overflowing, requests they're getting that aren't complete, the rework that's involved in following up people for the information that's required, diverting staff from actually processing invoices in that service centre to taking phone calls to deal with complaints. That's what we had to deal with. We've rolled out 8 or 9 of these service centres now, so I've just mentioned 2 of our finance service centres. Some of the other business ones were in web services, our library research function, into our contract administration and records service centres, and project support. And there's HR and a few others on the way. So we also had another problem. The fact that we'd actually let them down before. We've been out there and we've promised them the world with these big, fat, monolithic IT service management tools. And the reality is they don't work for business service centres. Okay, we've sat on a plane for 15 hours, so I haven't come here to actually tell you how good Jira Service Desk is. Sorry, guys. I believe it is. The next day or 2, if you don't know, I reckon you'll make up your own mind. But what we have learnt is you can put a piece of software on a machine and predict an outcome. But the reality is human beings aren't machines. You know, we had this problem with email and a culture. And we worked really, really hard to get through these 8 or 9 service centres. But we think there was 4 things we did differently, and these are the 4 things we're going to share with you. So we can put the focus back on our researchers, so they can do world-class research.
So, not dissimilar to many of you who are probably in the audience who've been in IT for a while, the way we used to do solution development was gather in all of the requirements and in parallel show the platform, the tool, to the end user just out of the box. I'm probably not telling any of you here that it doesn't work. And the reason why you probably know it doesn't work, it's time intensive, resource intensive, and requires ongoing maintenance and support. So how did we roll out these 8 service centres in 6 months? What's our agile approach? So the first insight is demonstrate it right the first time. This insight has 2 components. The first one, so it's take the time to listen. We all listen, perhaps not as effectively as we'd like to listen. So what does take the time to listen really mean to us? What it means to us is being curious, really trying to understand that end user. Making sure this first step is all about us understanding them, not us going out and showing them the tool. Take the time to listen has 4 parts. First of all, look. Look at the emails, look at the communications, look at the requests that are coming in. While you're looking, listen for what is not being said. What are they doing that they're not telling you? What are you seeing that they're not telling you? Then you can listen for what is being said. So listen to their phone calls, listen to the conversations they're having with their peers, their stakeholders. Listen to what they're telling you about their stakeholders, their pain points, their processes. So you've looked and you've listened, and now you can be informed and ask some really good questions. The who, the what, the when, the where, the why. But there's one really important question, and I've actually heard it in several sessions this morning, I think including the keynote. What's the one most important thing that you need from this solution? So you've taken the time to listen, you really understand what they're wanting, you're understanding their pain points and their processes. I'd really encourage you here to understand the impact, the importance of this step, and not to move on to the next part of demonstrate it right the first time until you've got it right. It'll make your life a lot easier further down the track. So the second part of demonstrate it right the first time is demonstrate the tool in context. So not out of the box like you used to. So this is about right context, right people, right time. I've got a scenario for you. I'm a car sales rep. I've got this car to sell you, and I've got 3 groups of people that come in to see me. But I know that this car is the best car for all of them. I've got a mechanic, I've got a couple, and a family of 4. First of all, take the time to listen. Sit down, talk to them. What did they like about their old car? What they didn't like about their old car? What do they want in a new car? And that one important question, what's the one thing you need from this new car? Once I make sure I've taken the time, I understand what they want, their pain points, I take them out, show them the car. I show the mechanic underneath the bonnet, the 8-cylinder engine. To the couple, I show them the leather seats, the sunroof, the stereo. To the family, 2 issues. Parents, I show the boot space, I show them the airbags, I show them the roof racks. Have to be added to that one. But to the kids, all they're interested in is the Pandora app or the Wi-Fi. So what have I got? I've sold 3 nice red cars. But more importantly, because I took the time to listen, because I showed them the car in context, I've got 3 happy people, 3 good relationships, and an ongoing rapport. So what we do with Jira Service Centre to our customers is exactly the same thing. Right context, right time, right people. Norm mentioned before about the problems that we had. I've got a few personas for you. Lucy, the executive manager. Her pain point, she couldn't report up the line. So what we showed her is the reporting features. Her response to us, this is fantastic. I've got a clear and concise view of everything the team is doing. I can see what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and I've got that data to report up the line. We've got Peter, the service centre manager. His problem was the visibility of what his team was doing. So we show him the rapid board. He can see all of the tasks that his team's got. He can reassign tasks. His comment, fantastic, I can now help my team out, reduce the stress. To Wendy, the finance officer, her pain points, massive inbox overload, causing stress and chaos. So we show her how she can open up a request, how she can see all of the communications. Straight away she's smiling and she can see how that inbox is going to reduce. And then that one important person, that researcher who we want to be going out, doing more things like Wi-Fi. What we show him, because his pain point was, I don't know where my invoice is, where is it going to get processed, I have to send off emails, I have to wait a week for a response. Show him the portal, show him how he can track and know exactly where his invoice is. So once again, 4 happy people, because we've shown them the tool in context and because we've demonstrated that we've listened. So while we were taking the time to listen, we also learnt about some habits that these people will have, the whole organisation will have. So our second insight, keep them in their comfort zone. That number again, 183,000 emails every day sent and received within our organisation. The finance team alone was dealing with 250 to 300 emails every day for first requests. So it's fair to say, over 40 years that we've been using email, we're embedded, we're wedded to email, and we knew taking email away from our service desk and away from the whole staff wasn't going to be a fight we were going to win. So what did we do? We kept them in their comfort zone. We decided to facilitate change just a little because we knew the solution would change over time, and it already has in a lot of our service centres. So we didn't push, we nudged, we kept them in their comfort zone. So everyone likes being in their comfort zone, we know that. Take someone out of their comfort zone, they're less likely to listen, they're more likely to be resistant. So what we did was we provided them a tool that they could still receive the requests through email, which kept them in their comfort zone. We didn't go in and show them the portal with all the bells and whistles, which is fantastic, and say you're not using email anymore, because we knew that would be like taking a red flag to a bull. So we developed a solution with still having email at the core, and it has eventually moved on over time. So once again, the taking the time to listen, the demonstrating it right the first time, keeping them in their comfort zone, has all meant that we've still got those 4 good relationships. We've got the ongoing rapport. We've learned about them, they've seen the tool in context, and the next insight is more about them understanding how we're going to work with them in this fast and furious agile approach.
Okay, so the next one was a little bit controversial, and it was this: accept a minimum viable product. What? A minimum viable product? Yeah? From a service centre manager who'd been let down before. Okay, pretty acceptable response, really, and that's what we got from 1 or 2 of them. But before we go too much further, there's a lot of IT folk in the audience, so minimum viable product really is a concept that comes out of Eric Ries and the Lean Startup. Okay? Minimum viable product is about getting a product in your customer's hands quickly, measuring the results, and then adapting it. But it's all around client value. Give them value, get the product in their hands. So when we went to our service centre managers, we said, well, you have a choice. Yeah? You can wait, and we can write about this stuff, and we can take a long time, or we can start and we can evolve it over time. And that's what we did. But how does it actually work? How do you roll out a service management tool using a minimum viable product? Okay, so we set them up. We set them up to work really, really quickly. So we said, at the end of every week, you're going to get a product. So we started with a couple of their requests, a couple of days to build it, demonstrated it to them, left it with them, and received their feedback in the first week. We took that feedback, we adapted the request, we started to inject the workflow they wanted. We took it back to them, we demonstrated, we left it with them for a couple of days, and we collected their feedback. Third week, went away, incorporated queues, adapted the requests, adapted the workflow based on their feedback, demonstrated it to them, put it back for them to use, and collected their feedback. In most instances, we gave them one more week to come back and do the final changes. That's how you can do it, each service centre in 4 weeks. But you might say, okay, what about the portal? What about KPIs? What about a knowledge base? And the other thing we learned, change really is an evolution for these people. It's a culture. They are embedded in email. Sarah mentioned you need to nudge them away from that. So we did. We took the email and we just turned it into requests. Yes, the emails they're receiving from their customers are still incomplete. Yes, they're having to go back and confirm the extra information. But all of a sudden, they're starting to coordinate their work in a far better manner than what they were with email. The next part of the evolution was the portal. Okay? So they're now comfortable with this tool. We're talking about the service centre themselves. We're not talking about their customers yet. So the next evolution for them was the portal. We had the service centres coming back to us saying, give us the portal. Turn off the email. It's not until your service centres have been using this for a while that they can start to look at KPIs. I mean, the great thing about Jira Service Desk is doing this in the background anyway, the basic KPIs. So you can start to educate them. They're more aware of their work and their workloads, and they can start to look at KPIs. And the final piece in the puzzle for us was the knowledge base. Okay? It's, again, not until you're getting them out of email, you're getting them into this new tooling where they can coordinate their work, that they're really starting to consider, okay, what extra information can we actually put up? What can we put into the wiki to actually prevent our researchers from even having to lodge a request? So you know you're ready to move on. So we haven't started building a product for them yet, but you know you're ready to move on when those service centre managers start using the phrase minimum viable product. They get the concept. Okay, but how do we work out now what they want? And the last insight we wanted to share with you was define requirements the Agile way. So typically in IT, we end up with something like this. Nice, big, fat document full of requirements, beautifully formatted, no spelling mistakes. We've even printed it in colour. But invariably, it ends up being used like this. Yeah. Hazard a guess what we might turn these into, what this might be called? Yeah. We call it a shit umbrella. That's what it is, yeah? And we're fantastic at producing them. Yeah, when the shit comes down, you know you've got it wrong, we put this above our heads and think it protects us. Right? It's useless, throw them away. So how did we define requirements an Agile way? And the key we found was to actually get our service centre customers, our service centre managers, to find the requirements their way. Yeah. Lowest common denominator, everyone can draw. Yeah. Don't write it down, draw a picture. Grab a big piece of paper and some big pens and start drawing up requests on them. Start putting the fields on there. When it comes to workflows, grab those same pieces of paper, start drawing big swim lanes on them, little stick figures in the swim lanes. Start to describe a status. That's how you define requirements the Agile way. And again, remember, we're not defining requirements here yet around the portal or KPIs or a knowledge base. We're giving them their minimum viable product. We're starting with the requests. So when you configure these solutions, you only need to know enough to start with the requests. The other thing we learned is don't worry about the statements around the system will. The system will do this, the system will do that. you know what the bloody system will do. Like, let's be honest. Let's go back. We actually demonstrated the system to them the first time. We did it right the first time. They have an understanding of what the system will do. Throw those out as well. You don't need them. The third thing we learnt around defining requirements the Agile way is where you can, get it online. So yes, we've just said use paper, use a pencil, start to draw these requirements. But you can start to lead them into the wiki if they want to ask you questions. You can actually start to use the customer portal yourself. When you're pushing out the solution to them and they're giving you that feedback, give them the customer portal to give you the feedback. So they're starting to become familiar themselves with the portal. The same portal as a service centre they will end up pushing out to their clients. So it all sounds good in theory, but how did we go? Across all of our service centres, we actually measured this. We've seen a 20 to 30% reduction in contact. They don't have to go back to people for the extra information that they were missing in the first place. One of our finance service centres went from receiving 1,900, call it 2,000 emails a month, down to none. And the last one, this one's really interesting. So it's only a saving of $60,000, but that $60,000 in one of our finance service centres went from taking someone whose full-time job was to process an email inbox, who really wants that job? Not me. And actually getting them back into what they were employed to do. And in that instance, it was processing invoices. Okay, so I think the main outcome for us was getting these people, our key researchers, back to doing what they're good at, reducing the administrative burden and giving them time to do some fantastic research. I think we might have time for questions, Carol?
Thank you. So if you want to have a question, just submit through the mobile app. So the first question we have, actually, Sarah, if you want to come up too. How did you integrate email? Did you respond to email requests? Did you integrate with service desk?
Okay, so with some of these service centres, some emails were generated out of our ERP. So in one instance, we're taking those, actually feeding them straight into Jira Service Desk, because our enterprise resource planning tool isn't a great tool for coordinating the work of that service centre. So initially it was redirecting those. It was redirecting emails that were sent straight to a service centre email address, and then eventually turning that off and redirecting people to the portal.
The other question we have is there anything you have done differently after you obviously had done it well, but is there anything differently you would have done?
Will we do anything differently now? When we first started with the first 2 or 3, we probably got to the point where we thought, there is a secret to this thing, and it's probably those 4 insights, and probably can't reinforce enough actually sitting there and listening to them. You know, walk a mile in someone else's shoes, sit there and observe what their problems are and build that rapport. But a key one where we failed previously is when we went out and showed them a service desk tool. We might have gone to our HR service centre but showed them an IT service desk tool and got them to imagine what it might look like. I mean, of course they're not going to imagine it. So from here in, I think we're set. I think it is now rinse and repeat. But we'll soon find out because we've got so many more to do as well.
But I think also a key thing that we haven't mentioned, because we were time restricted, was also that we said you can roll out a service centre in less than 4 weeks. But that's obviously got to do with the engagement you've got with the client. And I'm happy to stand here today and say we've got one service centre that we're struggling with because they're not ready to have that fast and furious approach at the moment. And that's reality. But it's about if you can sort of have the conversations with them, get them on board, keep the relationship and the rapport going, you've got a pretty good chance at hitting the mark.
We got another question. What were the challenges that you faced getting people out of email and using the portal?
So I think Initially, it was just accepting. Again, we failed early because we went out and said you don't need email, and hence one of the key insights is really to nudge them out of it. But look, it's persistence, and I think if the other one we're presenting there is really demonstrate it right the first time. So when you're demonstrating something to a service centre worker, really focusing on how they're going to pick up their work and how they're going to process it. How are you going to make their job easier? With a service centre manager, same thing. Show it in context. How are you going to make their job easier? For me, that's the secret sauce. Yeah, do it in context and then leverage them out of email.
And on the other side of that, for end users, what was the feedback from end users when email? Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. I think the portal concept itself, I think the hardest part was getting the service centre over the line when it comes to finding a new tooling for them to do their work. But as far as their customers go, our researchers, it is so much easier to be able to go into a portal, enter the information once, get updates from it, being able to track it, than it is to go back and find the email you sent, ring the service centre, and explain to them the time and date you sent them. I think for the end users, it was really just a compelling result.
When you say 4 weeks, how long did it really take in terms of resources? How big is the team?
I laugh because this one's really, really surprising. So we found we could actually do a couple of service centres in parallel. So whilst you've got one on the hook, you've been through this process and you're doing the configuration, you're building it for them. In parallel, we're spending time with another service centre, demonstrating it, looking at their requirements, explaining the minimum viable product. So we could have a couple on the go at any one time.
So if you look at that in terms of that 4-week and what we included in a longer presentation was, if you can think about, so we develop for 2 days, we give it to them for 2 days to test and to look at and to provide the feedback. They provide it. We're then working on it on the 5th day, and so then that's how we can be working in parallel. So when they're looking at their particular service desk and providing feedback, we can actually be doing development for another service centre.
It is dependent on your resources as well. So with a lot of these, you're down to a single individual. And it's also one of the things we're looking at where we're not having our traditional roles, but trying to morph these people into those real workflow specialists so they can do the client engagement, they can have the conversations, they can configure the tool and they're confident enough to take it back in. What we're trying to do is eliminate the handoffs. Trying to eliminate, with all due respect, sending a business analyst out there to understand the requirements, to document it, to hand it off to a Jira admin. We're moving away from that.
And I guess just to say, this was actually done by one person within my team. Yeah.
That's everything. Thank you so much. So actually, a few reminders. So this is going to be online. So if you ever want to look up something, you can go online. We have a promotion where you can actually win 2 tickets anywhere round trip around the world. So email fly free with JSD@Atlassian.com.